Hello, my name is Morgan Potter, and today I will be presenting on the age appropriateness of expectations within the classroom setting I am working in. First, we will begin with the general classroom expectations, and then we'll get into the details. So in our free play setting, it is expected that children are manipulating toys and activities with their hands and using inside voices with their bottoms on the ground. In structured areas at the table where we do more of the academic, like sit down, cut a paper, color it, follow directions, it is expected that they sit in a chair or stand near the spot that their chair is at the table with a quiet bubble. If they are desiring to add a comment or a question, they are expected to raise their hand and wait to be called on. Within meal times, such as snack and lunch, the children are expected to sit in a chair to minimize choking, and they can converse with peers. Ideally, it would be with minimal facilitation, but obviously we have individualized support as needed. It is also expected that they raise their hand if they are desiring adults' attention to help open a package or maybe get something from a different area of the classroom, etc. Lastly, within the playground setting, the children have the expectation to verbally request a turn or even space from a peer. They're expected to keep hand, legs, other body parts on their own body unless it's appropriate for social interactions. For example, they could be expected to tag each other gently or high five each other, but obviously they are learning how to have judgment of like the power in which they are contacting each other. Next, we will talk about the age group that I'm working with. So I am in a pre-K setting with children who range from 4 to 5 years of age. I think we have one that's up to 6, but generally 4 to 5 and right before kindergarten. Our teacher count is 3 teachers. We have a maximum of 9 children in the classroom and 3 teachers, which is a pretty good ratio. I know that's kind of unheard of, but I'm very lucky in the setting that I'm at. All right, so now that we know the overall expectations within my classroom setting and the ratio that we have, or like the age group, let's talk about some specific expectations within play and routine of our day. One expectation that we have is to wait to line up while sitting on their bottom with their hands and legs on their own body. If they're desiring to chat, the volume they're using should be an appropriate volume for an indoor setting. So right below the number 1 on the left of your screen, you will see the area that they generally sit to wait by the window, and then the teachers are calling them as everyone is ready. So this is kind of the gathering place before the transition begins. Times that they would need to line up would be like recess, or maybe they're going to look at something in a different classroom, stuff like that. All right, our expectation number 2 is raising hand before speaking when a teacher is providing directions. So you will see a picture of a table with chairs around it. Some chairs are scooted back because children prefer to stand at activities. Other chairs are at the table where the children would be sitting. It is expected that they raise their hand because we are trying to get them ready for kindergarten and also allow the teacher to provide directions without being interrupted. Expectation number 3 is at the same table setting, but they are expected to converse with peers at mealtime with minimal facilitation. So this is a little bit more of a social time. We're encouraging them to engage with their peers rather than the adults. Expectation number 4 is within our centers or our independent activities where they are expected to sit on a mat similar to the one in the picture. So this mat is red with a little rectangle on it. Everybody has their own mat that they're sitting on, and they're expected to sit or lay on that however they prefer while manipulating the activity independently. This is a bear sorting activity. So generally, most of our students do not need support with that. These are activities they are familiar with and know how to manipulate independently. Alrighty, so are these expectations age appropriate? Uh, the expectations I chose all align with the standards, the Head Start standards. I was trying to challenge myself to identify expectations we have, but I feel pretty lucky that the collaboration we have done to ensure they are age appropriate has been quite successful. So I had a challenge finding ones that were not age appropriate. But I did highlight the goals that each expectation I mentioned aligns with. So first, the goal, let me take you back to the previous slide, to wait in line at the window that we saw in picture number 1. That was age appropriate because by 5 years old, the child should be able to wait for what they are desiring. In this case, it is waiting to be called in line. And that specific goal is working on their cognitive self-regulation and executive function. Secondly, aligning with the same goal is that expectation to raise their hand if desiring to contribute to the structured activity. And this is aligning with their goal of being able to wait for an adult to call on them rather than impulsively shouting out. Again, this is something they should be mastering towards 5 years of age, which is the age group I'm working with. Thirdly, we have the goal to converse with, or the expectation to converse with peers at meal times with minimal facilitation. Age is age appropriate because at 60 months of age, they should be engaging and maintaining positive interactions with other children, which is under the subdomain of relationships with other children. So they're really practicing those skills by maintaining conversations. Lastly, the expectation to independently manipulate the activities and sit on their mat is age appropriate because a child is expected to easily do puzzles and other fine motor tasks independently by the age of 5, and this is under the subdomain of fine motor skills. So like I said, all of these goals are expectations are age appropriate according to the Head Start goals. Alrighty, so although I do not have improvements related to age appropriateness of these because they were not age appropriate, I do want to say that it is easy to assume that all children are developing according to their age. An improvement that we can make as professionals is to accommodate children who are still mastering those skills and maybe providing extra reminders, or in the case of the independent activities, providing simpler tasks, really just meeting them where they're at to get them to the outcomes we are desiring. Next, we will discuss the communication in which our expectations are being presented in the classroom setting I am working in. Currently, we are providing initial reminders of the expectations and modeling prior to starting an activity. So for example, at the structured activity, hey, remember friends, before we ask a question, we're going to raise our hand like this. And then the teacher will model the behavior of raising their hand without shouting out. Additionally, throughout the activities, we are providing verbal reinforcement of the children who are acting according to our expectations and providing friendly reminders with calm voices as professionals to remind the children to engage in those expectations appropriately. And the modality of our communication is appropriate because the expectation to remember multi-step instructions and expectations is appropriate for children approaching 5 years of age. However, I did identify that while children are still working towards this goal, it could be beneficial to provide more visuals in the environment so they have something to reference rather than us only providing verbal reminders. Now that we know the expectations that my personal classroom has, let's look at the cultural and family values alignment. If you look in the bottom left corner, I paraphrase the quote from one of the articles we read this week, stating that although households and teachers often have similar terminal goals for children, the strategies used to achieve them may be different. So it's super important that we are communicating with families and listening to the feedback that they have. A couple ways that our classroom is aligning with the values of our families is we encourage our children to request and obtain consent prior to giving hugs with each other. Although they're children and it may seem age appropriate to just run up and give each other hugs, we really, really encourage our kids to ask first. And this is something that parents have said they would like to do at home and have thanked us for teaching their child the introduction to that skill. And even though it may seem a little mature for this age group, we do label it as consent to really get the foundation of that word into their little brains. Alrighty. A second way that we know that our values are aligning with our families is my company has done a really good job of including families in community events and Spirit Week collaboration just to maintain that relationship and have open communication if they did have concerns. Two ways that our parents have actually voiced concerns is one family shared that their child sitting at a table for an hour is really not a priority to them. They're looking for more flexible kindergarten environments, so that is not a skill their child needs to learn right now in their time of life. So we have given that child access to breaks while the peer group is expected to stay at the table for that long, because most standard kindergarten classrooms are having them sit at a desk for a pretty long time. I said an hour, it ranges, it's more like 45 minutes, but just that long time period, the family said that they were not comfortable with that, and so we adjusted for that child. Secondly, we've heard concerns regarding the language used in our classroom. We have some children who are coming from households that use cuss words and other families that think cuss words should not be used by children. So, unfortunately, children are learning words they may not hear at home. We hear those concerns. We cannot control what children are saying, but we do encourage the more appropriate language at school and try to teach children that although they may use words at home, sometimes we don't use them at school. So really encouraging the children who do not use those words by helping the other children respect their friends' desires. That one's a little harder than the first one, but we are really trying to collaborate with families and listening when they do bring up concerns. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope that some of this information is helpful, and I cannot wait to hear ideas from you guys. Have a great day. Bye-bye.